everyone, and welcome back to Showhome Live. I'm joined in this exclusive interview session with Jennifer Wynyard, who's the Senior Strategic Land Manager for Barratt Developments and also recently appointed National Chair for Women in Property. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Joseph.
Thank you for joining us. Jennifer, to begin with, I think it would be interesting to learn a little bit more about you from a professional angle. So could you give us a bit of a run through of your career to date and also your journey to becoming the National Chair of Women in Property?
So I started out doing a degree in architecture at Newcastle University. Part way through in my training, I took a year out in practice and actually thought planning was a better role for me at the time. So I went back to do my master's in town planning, after which I thought I'd possibly go into urban design. So I looked out for urban design and planning consultancies and worked for Turley's in Leeds for a number of years as a town planning consultant. I did a lot of retail, tourism and commercial development. I wanted to broaden my skill set 6 or 7 years in. So an opportunity came up in strategic land at a house builder. And I thought I've done quite a few years in the planning sector, developed those skills, but I really wanted to develop my skills in residential development and also land buying. So I moved into a house builder where I learned the skills in land buying. And I've been in house building for 10 years now. So using my planning skills, but also I'm a chartered surveyor. I did my training my first couple of years in house building.
How has the experience been for you overall over the past sort of 10 years or so? And what would you say have been some of the standout moments? I imagine obviously becoming the National Chair of Women in Property would be one of them.
So I've been involved in women in property for 17 years. So when I moved to Leeds, it was a new area of the country for me. I wanted to meet new friends. And also the work I was doing was winning planning work. So it just made sense to start doing something extracurricular. So I've been involved in the Yorkshire and the North West Committee for 17 years and done various roles on the committee. I've organised the largest events in the branch. I've been Student Awards Ambassador and Mentoring Ambassador during that time. In 2014, I was Regional Chair. And then in 2019, I took on leading the Student Awards programme on a national basis. So got involved more nationally. And then last year, I took on the role as National Vice Chair. I developed the second conference, which is the People, Innovation and Place Summit, which is taking place in November of this year, and supported the National Chair.
Well, it sounds like you've achieved a great deal already. Congratulations. You must have a very busy schedule, I imagine. What inspired you to take on this leadership role with the Women in Property Association?
So I've always had a passion for volunteering for the organisation, and then taking on the lead of the Student Awards programme in 2019 is something that I was really passionate about, really encouraging young people to come into the property industry. I started out doing quite a lot of work and our student, our Education Roadshow programme, which is now our outreach. So outreach, Student Awards and mentoring is something that I'm really championing as National Chair.
So I'd like for us to learn a bit more about women in property itself and the role of National Chair. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
So the main role of a National Chair is being the voice of the organisation, but also to encourage the branches in running their events and supporting the initiatives that we do. So it's always been, so we started 37 years ago. It's always been increasing the gender balance, but more recently, it's more about inclusion in general. So it's a greater balance of gender, ethnicity, and social mobility. So there's different areas that we focus on. So we've got our student awards program, we've got our unique mentoring program, we've got our outreach, and then our branches are all there to run events, a diverse range of events, which can be CPD accredited, so they can be anything to do with technical skills, more transferable skills, but site visits, but also more sessions on self-development, building confidence, etc.
So you've just mentioned there I guess the main goals, some of the main goals of women in property. How do you see women in property contributing to the advancement and representation of women within the construction industry?
Well, I think at the moment, I don't think we'll ever be redundant because of what we provide, the social and collaborative aspects of what we deliver. We've got lots of safe spaces that people can come together and learn from each other.
And how would you say your experience at Barratt Homes has influenced your approach to promoting diversity and inclusion within the property sector?
I think it's broader than that. I think at the start I run through how I got into property myself. In planning consultancy, I would say it was relatively balanced in terms of the workforce, particularly amongst the fee earners. Um, but since I moved into house building 10 years ago, I was the only female in the team, and it was very male dominated in terms of the people I dealt with outside of the business. We work in quite big teams, and there was a definite imbalance in terms of men and women.
So
I think,
would you say that that's something that you've seen change, positively change in the time that you've been working in the industry?
yes, very much so. I mean, and there's a particular imbalance across the divisions as well, or particularly within the teams within the divisions. I think there's a lot more. I would say it's very balanced on a office space. Where it's quite different in house building is on in the more technical roles and in the construction part of the business. So on site, there's a definite imbalance there. There's very few women that actually work on our construction sites, and that's something that I'm really keen to try and improve internally this year. There's a lot of particularly male allies that are very, very supportive in getting females into that side of the business, and that's something that I'm really keen on working on.
So what are some of the initiatives or programs that Women in Property has implemented or is going to implement to improve that imbalance?
So I think I've touched on outreach, student awards, and mentoring. Our mentoring program has been running since 2002, and we've trained hundreds of people through that scheme. We've currently got 100 trained participants, and we're actively seeking new mentors because it's such a popular program. We match female to female, which is still unique how we do it because it's matching female to female within the property and construction sector.
Is that scheme that you just mentioned a scheme that you yourself went through and benefited from?
Yes. I did the training several years ago now, and I was mentoring ambassador in Yorkshire for 5 years. So I actually helped with the matching process as well, which was really, really interesting. I've mentored several young women through the programme, and I've had a mentor myself, which actually was really pivotal in my career. It was actually when I made the move from planning consultancy into house building, and I honestly can say I don't think I would have made the move if I hadn't had that mentor at the particular time, because I think it was such a shift in what I was doing, and I was effectively learning 50% a job that was 50% different to what I was doing. And I think the confidence and the self-belief that she helped me build was just incredible. And it was so valuable having someone who was outside of my business so I could be very open about what challenges I was facing and how I wanted to move forward.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the challenges actually in a moment, but before we move on to that, are there any other ways in which you think that more women can be attracted into the industry, into the house building industry?
I think a lot of it is actually getting people at a younger age involved and understanding about the built environment as a whole. I think there's so many examples where younger people, even when they go to university, they're not actually aware of all the roles that they can do within these certain sectors. Taught through my own career, I went into architecture. Architecture is a really obvious one. People know what architects do. I didn't even know what a planning consultant actually did, or I didn't really know what planning was until I'd got to university. So it wasn't until I was actually working planning consultancy and I was working for house builders and actually doing their planning work, I actually realised I could do a planning role or a surveying role in a house builder. So there's a whole variety of careers that people can have within the house building sector. It's just actually us shouting a bit more about it
Raising
and
awareness.
explaining what you can do and raising awareness. And I think that's where outreach really plays a huge part in this. And that's so Women in Property are actively doing more on the outreach side of things this year. Our regional branch chairs are really encouraged in doing a lot more in their regions, but also businesses themselves can be doing this. We did something recently with Barrett's and we went and talked to 14 and 15-year-olds, and we actually got them to recreate a layout, so a scheme with 50 odd houses on it, but actually so they could understand exactly what we could do. And then they could ask questions about what skills you would need. And that actually really opened a really positive conversation. And they probably wouldn't have known about that otherwise.
I'm really glad you've just touched upon that, actually, because we do have another session coming up in which the speaker will be talking about specifically about attracting more youngsters into the industry. So yeah, thank you for that. Now moving on to the challenges then, what would you say are some of the key challenges that women face in the property sector today, and how is Women in Property trying to address these issues?
So I think still one of the biggest issues is the mid-career, and that's for women and for the industry. I think the old issues like the unconscious bias impacting development opportunities. Also, critically working with allies, and that's something that we're working on more and more, and that's really targeting senior and mid-manager men. It's really helping them to understand how they can help and support these women, opening up the conversations, inviting them to events, talking to us, and ultimately learning from each other. Another one's the gender pay gap. It's quite current. Obviously, April's when people need to publish their results, and I think it's really improving in places, but I think there's still that sort of disconnect between women actually being in these senior positions and the actual pipeline of women coming into these industries.
And how do you envision the future of Women in Property, and what steps are being taken to adapt to the ever-evolving landscape of the industry?
So membership is growing on a daily basis. It's around 1,500 now, which is amazing. So it's evident that women really love the space that we've created, and we're obviously running some really successful events and successful initiatives. We'll be focusing more on outreach this year, which I've touched upon. This is really, really important for our regional chairs, and I think there's areas of the country where this is being done extremely well, and we just want to make sure that it's happening across the whole organisational patch. We've also been doing a lot of thinking and consulting upon opening our membership to make sure that we're moving with the evolving landscape. Don't think we're quite there yet, but we are looking at different ways to encourage particularly male allies to come along to our events and really celebrate their support for us.
And finally, Jennifer, what advice would you offer to young women aspiring to pursue careers in the property industry?
Broaden your network as soon as you can, and start as soon as you can, even from university. Your network will help you secure work placements. It will help you find mentors, which, as I touched upon, mentoring is so important at every stage of your career. You'll need something quite different when you're starting out through to mid-career and even towards the end of your career as you approach retirement. So that's why broadening your network is just so important. It's good to have those sounding boards or outside your own business, with other women that may have come across similar challenges than yourself. Don't give up, ask questions, seek advice.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer, for joining us and for sharing your story, and also those sound pieces of advice for other women and young women that might be thinking about entering into the house building industry.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.